Molweni manene namanene kazi, namkile kile kwinkubo. Ngomgqibelo eBelfast Island Ludumo Lamati uza kuba nethuba lakhe elikhulu ndithetha ngomlo wakhe no Nick Ball. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Saturday night in Belfast Island, Ludumo Lamati is going to have his big opportunity against Nick Ball, a 12-round featherweight fight for Ball's WBC silver featherweight title. Sikazulula Umlo Apa. Let's break the fight down. This weekend, we have a very busy weekend of boxing ahead of us. Saturday night here in South Africa at Sun City, we're going to have Phumelele Kafu as well as Jackson Chauke, each in action in separate fights against international opponents. Then over in the UK, Maurizio Lara is going to try and hang on to his WBA World Featherweight title against Lee Wood. That's, of course, a rematch of a fight where Lara scored that knockout over Woods when the corner threw in the towel. And then in Belfast, Ireland, another Irish star, Michael Conlon, is going to try and become world champion at his second attempt when he takes on the IBF world champion, Luis Alberto Lopez. Now, on the main supporting bout in that Belfast card, we're going to have two undefeated fighters meeting each other. And the one is a WBC silver featherweight title, and that's Nick Ball. He's 17-0 with 10 knockouts. He's undefeated, and he's coming up against our own Ludumo Lamati, who's 21-0-1 with 10 knockouts. The flash in my eyes is making me struggle to see my notes here, but nonetheless, we've got to carry on. And it's a really intriguing fight. Now, if I look at the bookies, by not giving Ludumo Lamati much of a chance. Most people have got Nick Ball winning this one inside the distance. And I can kind of see why. Ludumo Lamati has got a big mountain to climb. Can he climb it? Because if we look at Nick Ball, he really came to prominence in his last three fights. We'll remember him from the undercard of Tyson Fury against Dillian White. He was basically a six-rounder fighter, and he was thrown in against Isaac Lowe. Isaac Lowe in his previous fight lost to Lopez, who will be in the main event there in Belfast, is now a world champion. And Lowe only had that one loss. He came in with a 21-1-3 record, and Ball knocked him out. And after that, he took on a Namibian that we'll be familiar with, Nathaniel Kokololo. And Kokololo was stopped in the 12th and final round. And in his last fight, he fought Jesus Ramirez Rubio, a Mexican with a record of 20 wins, 1 loss and 3 draws, and he knocked Rubio out in the first round. So it's easy to see that people think that Lamati is going to go the same way, because Nick Ball's got a lot of momentum behind him. But what kind of a fighter is Nick Ball? He's basically an awkward puncher. His style is somewhat predictable, but he's awkward. And why do I say that? He's a short, strong squat fighter, so Ludumo will have the height and reach advantage like almost all of Ball's opponents have. And he is a puncher. He goes for a knockout, and he really sits down and he commits to his punches. He's got a good left hook. He's got a good right hand. He does have a jab, but he doesn't use it much. And he's explosive. He attacks very quickly, and he closes the distance very quickly. He almost slides in with his power punches, and he negates that height and reach advantages that his opponents has. He steadily stalks them when he comes forward. He's not a swarming kind of pressure fighter, but he comes forward steadily and he throws those big shots. Now, that is Nick Ball. Ludumo Lamati, we know him here in South Africa. Been at two of his major fights ringside, the one where he fought former world title challenger Richie Mepronum at the Orient Theatre, and another where he won the IBO's version of a world title in the junior featherweight division at Emperor's Palace, and he fought an absolute war against Jose Martin Estrada Garcia. How's that for chucking all the Latin names on the shoulders of one man? It's almost like being called Jan Piet Koos van der Merwe. But anyway, the Mexican came to fight. It was an absolute war, and Lamati came through with a majority decision. Since then, he's moved up to featherweight, and he's had 2 wins there. He looked good in doing so. Now, I was, as I've said, at the Garcia fight, and we were still locked into these bubbles back then because of COVID. And Lamati really battled with the weight there. In the pre-weigh-in, he was still kilos overweight, and he had to sweat it all down. So I think featherweight is perhaps a better fit for Ludumo Lamati. He doesn't have to fight to make the weight. I saw him sparring a few months ago there at the end of last year at the Hotbox Gym with DJ Kriel, chunky DJ Kriel, and he looked good. So Lamati is prepared for this. He's had plenty of time to prepare. The other thing with Ludumo Lamati, he's fought in the UK before. So I don't think he'll have a deer in the headlights look that a lot of the visiting fighters get. He hasn't been on an event of his magnitude, but he has fought on the road. He knows the UK crowd is familiar to him. So that's also a plus point. Now he's going to have a height and reach advantage. That's, as I've said, almost all of Nick Ball's opponents have. And he is undefeated. And I think he's had a very professional experience. He had to dig deep to win fights before. He's been through wars. Nick Ball, he's taken a few shots and he's had bloody noses and marked up faces, but he was never been close to losing or looked like the fight's not going his way. Now, I've watched these fights and he takes a few to get in a few. And he's fit, he's got lots of heart, he's got a lot of dog in him, like Americans say, so he'll be there till the end. But there's also some mistakes with Nick Ball. What I found is he likes to jump in straight and he likes to jump out straight. If he gets out of the way from punches by stepping back, not a lot of side-to-side movement. I wonder how he will do if somebody forces him to move backward. I think he'll struggle a bit. And against Kakalolo, even though he was winning right through, there was a time when Kakalolo caught him, I think, with a right uppercut and his knees buckled and he looked hurt for a moment in time there, and then he gathered himself and eventually stopped Kakalolo. So Nick Ball, I think, can be hurt. If we look at Ludumo Lamati, he's a much better fighter, I think, than Nathaniel Kakalolo. So it's a big step up or a big test for Nick Ball as well. But the whole thing here, if I look at Nick Ball, how far will he go? It depends on how solid his chin is, which hasn't really been tested that much. It depends how solid his chin is, how well it will last him, and it depends until he walks into a good counter puncher with some power in his shots as well. Now, Ludumo Lamati is not known as a knockout artist, but I think he hits hard enough to hurt his opponent. He hits hard enough to get respect. And what I like about Ludumo Lamati, unlike Nick Ball's last 3 opponents, he's not a tall, straight up, rangy sort of guy, even though he'll be rangier than Nick Ball. He's much more compact. I think he's technically much better than Nick Ball. His hands are where they should be. He defends well. He blocks well on the elbows and the gloves. So I think technically he's a lot more tighter than Nick Ball, and that's something that I like about Ludumo Lamati. He's got a good jab. He's got a good right hand. He's got all the array of punches, left hook, body punches. And I think, looking at Nick Ball, there's some obvious weaknesses there. He overcommits on his punches. That's where his power comes from also. And he gets away with it because he seems like a strong guy. If he's in a clinch, he manhandles you, he shoves you off him. And he likes rough stuff too. And I think his natural power and his explosiveness make him get away with it. But he throws his weight too far forward. He's sometimes off balance and misses badly. And he gets caught with those right uppercuts time and time again. Nobody's been able to fully capitalize yet. But he does get caught. Against Kakalolo, he was bleeding from the nose. He had a mark here under the eye. So he can be hit. And as I've said, that forward momentum as he goes in with those, putting everything in the shot, you can get countered that way because he sometimes throws wide. So I'm quite certain that Ball is going to hit Ludumo Lamati. And does he have a chin to take those shots? That's a question mark. We're not too sure. He hasn't fought a puncher like Nick Ball before, I think. And the other question is, can Nick Ball avoid getting countered? And how will he handle those fast combinations of Lamati? Lamati also has his weaknesses. He tends to stay in the pocket too long. We saw that against the Mexican Garcia. He threw his punches and then he stayed in that pocket too long, and Garcia got on the inside and hit him with a lot of shots, but he was able to survive that and win. Now, for this fight, Ludumo Lamati is going to have to use his jab, even if he doesn't hit Nick Ball in the head, to keep him busy. He jab him to the chest. One is always hesitant to go to the body when you have a big punch because you expose yourself, but he should step with the angles and bang that body, even if it's with a long shots. If he keeps Nick Ball on the outside, he's got the fight won. Ball needs to be on the inside to be able to be effective. So he's got to look for those counters, time Nick Ball as he comes in, and when he is inside, tie him up or turn him around. It will be interesting to see who will be the stronger in these up-close clinches. So Lamati has got to step around Nick Ball all the time and look for the openings that will be there and not get caught himself. Now, Nick Ball's going to have a bit more variety in his attack. He's going to have to go to a body. If he just falls in love with his power, keeps going for one shot, it might not work out so well for him. Now, I don't know. When you look at the fight on paper and you look at the guys that Nick Ball fought in his last 3 fights, it's important not just to look at the records of an opponent, you also have to look at the records of the opponents of the opponents. Who did they fought? If I look at Isaac Lowe, he was solid, but in his previous fight, with no fight in between, he got knocked out by Luis Alberto Lopez, who was fighting Condon in the main event, and he was coming straight off a knockout loss, and I think that was maybe not the right time to fight a guy like Nick Ball. And then Nathaniel Kakololo, he's lost a couple of fights in Russia before fighting Ball, and I don't think he's as good as Ludumo Lamati. I think Lamati's got more tricks in his bag. Kakololo is decent, but Lamati is better. And Jesus Ramirez Rubio, that guy, great record, 20 wins, 1 loss, 3 draws, but all those 20 wins have been in Mexico, and it's been against not good opponents. It's been against very so-so opponents. So I think his record flattered him a little bit. So although Nick Ball destroyed him, it was maybe not as good a win. And different to those guys, Lamati's got a more versatile, a more compact style, and he's a better technician, and that gives me hope. His technique is better, he's sharper and tighter than Nick Ball. His ball is depending on that power, and how well is Nick Ball going to take the shots of Lamati if he hits him with consistency, not just in spurts like Kakololo did. So I think both are going to have their moments. I think it's going to be a very good tear-up while it lasts. I struggle to see it going the distance. I see a knockout on either side, and I think the superior technique of Ludumo Lamati, if he's on his P's and Q's, that I believe he will be, and if he remembers not to stay in the pocket too long and step around and Nick Ball, make him move back, step around him, make him come forward, set traps for him, I think he's capable of hitting Nick Ball a lot more than his previous opponents have hit him. So I'm going to stick my neck out here and call an upset. I think Ludumo Lamati is going to do it, and I think it's going to be a rough, tough stoppage somewhere in the later round, somewhere between round 8 and 10. It's for the WBC silver belt, which is the sort of second tier bout before you get to the world title. He can win that and keep on winning. He might well find himself in a world title shot. To me, it's a bit like another South African featherweight, Lerato Dlamini, when he fought the Filipino Penalosa there in the UAE, when everybody expected Penalosa to be too strong for him, and when he ended up beating Penalosa. I think this is that sort of situation here with Ludumo Lamati and Nick Ball. But fights are not fought on paper. We'll have to see how it goes down. I believe it's on DSTV on the ESPN channel on Saturday night. So I'm looking forward to it. Guys, tell me in the comment section, what do you think? Do you have Nick Ball winning, or do you have Ludumo Lamati winning this one? How do you think it goes down? How does each man win? And if you enjoy the channel, please give it a thumbs up. I'll greatly appreciate that. And punch that subscribe button. And until we see each other again, Pakamisani Izandla.